It's Iron Bowl week. Let's go.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into a special crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Bama. I'm Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn. That is Luke Robinson, the Bama boy himself, host of Locked On Bama. The rest of the country is celebrating Thanksgiving, while folks here in the state of Alabama celebrate Iron Bowl week. And we'll give our predictions, and we'll talk about the Milroe and Thorne weird comparisons that are kind of floating around the interwebs and the smack talk happening throughout Auburn's freshman class, and kind of Jalen Milroe at this point. But it's interesting how different these two fan bases feel about this game versus where they were a month ago, maybe even a week ago, Luke.
Yeah, I would say it's more like a week ago. I mean, most Alabama fans were basically saying, okay, win these two games. And no matter, the Iron Bowl is always the Iron Bowl. It can always be tricky. And but get out of there with a win and you're in the playoffs and probably hosting, especially given the way the rest of the weekend went down. And then they just go and lay an egg in a fashion that hasn't been laid since the Shula days. And it was, I'm going to tell you, for me, it was rather devastating because I haven't seen Alabama do that. Now, I was in San Francisco when Clemson blew our doors off, but I felt like that was a little different. First of all, that's a national championship game, and you can always say, hey, we won the SEC, still had that 2018 SEC title game, which is one of the best games we've ever been to.
Right.
But this was different. This Oklahoma team had no business being on the same field with Alabama. And so what you have to think about is, okay, it's not really a talent issue because Alabama clearly had more talent than Oklahoma to me, and Oklahoma was missing a lot of folks. It's can this staff get folks prepared for the game issue? And
you think it's a preparation thing? Was it a preparation thing like against Vandy as well? Like, is it similar issues that keep popping up in your mind, or are they kind of isolated incidents that you kind of found different ways to lose there?
I mean, I don't know if we have a true enough sample size to say what it is. I mean, I can go back and look at Kalen DeBoer at Washington last year. They had some close calls against bad teams. Arizona State, who's doing great this year. My son goes to school there. But they're not – they didn't do so well last year. And Arizona State had Washington on the ropes at Washington. I remember watching that game late night. And, Washington eked it out, and they went to the national championship game, and that counts for something.
Sure.
But at the same time, to play like you did in the first half against Georgia, and then to win the game like you did, and then to go to Vanderbilt, and I know they scored 35 points, but they give up 40 to Vandy, and of course 7 come on a pick 6 and all this, but it just was that was infuriating at the time. And then you lose at Tennessee, which I think a lot of people can forgive. I mean, Tennessee's pretty good this year; they'll go to the playoffs, I assume.
Okay.
The Oklahoma thing is inexplicable. I don't even know where to look for answers.
Yeah, and so like how quickly can they bounce back? And I think that's kind of the Auburn hope in all of this is one, you saw an Auburn offense be more consistent and do a lot of the things that we've been begging them to do all season, and it worked, and you beat a ranked team, your first ranked win in several seasons. And on the other side of the coin is you look and see what happened in Tuscaloosa against Oklahoma. And it's just, you got to assume this is an Alabama locker room that's dealing with a lot of stuff that they've never had to deal with before. I mean, these guys are used to winning. They're used to blowing people out, and they're used to competing for championships. And Bama still has a path to the playoff. They need some help at this point. But the way college football has gone this year, like, I don't think it's crazy and out of the question to kind of have some upsets, impact who makes the playoff in the final week of the regular season. But I do think the fact of the matter is, like, this is new territory for Alabama. And for once, I think you've got an Auburn team that's excited to go to Tuscaloosa. And you saw that with some of the smack talk that we'll talk about whenever you want to, Luke, about the, coming from these freshmen earlier in the week. But this feels a lot different than I expected it to, even a week ago.
Yeah, I think in their title, there are two different vibes is a great way to put it. The vibe for me is probably different than some other Alabama fans. I
Why
think
is
there's a
that?
lot more anger out there about what happened last week. For me, it's all this uncertainty is giving me anxiety, quite frankly, because when you go through a stretch like Alabama has for 16, 17 years, and you're the preeminent program in the country, and there's no doubt about it. I mean,
Sure.
rappers are using Nick Saban in their songs, and everybody is saying, at game day, holding up signs, "We want Bama," and all of a sudden we haven't fallen off a cliff. Let's not go crazy, but a loss like what we saw against Oklahoma just never happened. It wasn't an issue. I mean, we'd show up, we'd roll the ball out there and blow people's doors off, and that aura has eroded. Now, it hadn't completely eroded because Alabama's lost 3 games this year, and 3 times people have stormed the field. So it still means something. But I do feel like right now, and again, just based on this past week, it feels like 2 programs going in different directions, even though big picture, that's not true. Alabama and Auburn recruiting gangbusters, and it just feels that way a little bit.
That's the most Bama thing ever. Like when we lose, the teams we lose to storm the field. So he's like, we get it's a big deal. It's like, come on. Y'all are so into yourselves. It's crazy. Well, even in losses, y'all are finding something. It's like, well, at least we like allowed the other team to be happy. Like, get over yourself. No, man.
We didn't. No, Oklahoma took that. I want to be clear about that. But I think there's something to be said for. I mean, nobody. Vanderbilt, where you played Vanderbilt at Auburn. I'm trying to think. Missouri didn't storm the field when they beat y'all. Mm-hmm. Right now, eventually, in a few years, if Auburn keeps recruiting this way and they find a quarterback, they will. Maybe people will be storming the field for them. But a spade is a spade.
It's just a weird flex. It's just a weird flex, look, and I feel like Bama's the only fan base that would use that as a flex. That's all.
It is. I'm 100% grasping at straws. I'm trying to keep myself happy for Thanksgiving. You said this earlier that Thanksgiving usually is all this family time and whatever, and everybody in the nation is worried about, oh God, this Thanksgiving. I hope people can forgive each other for their political alliances. Sure. Alabama and Auburn fans have been doing this every Thanksgiving forever. We've learned to go to family Thanksgivings and just not bring it up.
That's right. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It is why it's the best rivalry in college football. I get so, I got 2 kids in Columbus, Ohio, and they're both all 3 of them are Alabama.
My wife's family are Ohio State fans. Every other year we'd spend Thanksgiving up there. It's not the same thing.
It's not the same. It's not the same. They don't know. And everybody in Ohio can go back to Ohio and not have to deal with anybody in Michigan. I run into Auburn fans everywhere. You run into Bammers everywhere.
Yeah, you live closer to Auburn than you do Tuscaloosa.
Well, I live in Birmingham, but I work near Auburn. My brother lives in Auburn.
You drive that far every day? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. But I love Birmingham. I went to high school.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Place.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great.
Bama has
great. That's right. That's right. All right. Hey, today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And right now you can bet $5, Luke Robinson. You can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet hits. As we record this, the line, Bama favored by 11.5, according to FanDuel. You like that number?
No, it's crazy high.
Should be single digits is what I've been saying this week.
Oh, I mean, I'm thinking low single digits.
I'm thinking like 6.5, 7.5. You think it should be closer than that?
That they're still, feel like Vegas is still kind of hung up on Bama being Bama, and I'm not sure we're Bama right now.
Not sure you're Bama right now, as far as just being like this dominant force that you've been.
Well, we would normally get extra credit for being in Tuscaloosa, especially against Auburn, right? And because most of those games have been double-digit wins for Alabama. In fact, I think all of them have been just about. I can't think of a single-digit one off the top of my head.
Was 2014?
That was 2014 was 44.
Okay, yeah, that would have been the closest one, right?
Yep. So, I mean, I understand it a little bit, and I do think, people tend to, in the end, they tend to bet on, when in doubt, and if you're going to bet on Bama. Well, I'm not sure that that's the play this time.
11.5's a lot. I think 11.5 is going to be a lot. So we'll see. But hey, head over to FanDuel.com. Of course, FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn or Locked On Bama your first listen every single day. So let's talk about some of this, freshman smack talk from DeMarcus Riddick and Cam Coleman. Perry Thompson tweeted out the stats of Peyton Thorne and Milroe's passing stats right next to each other, and somehow Thorne's numbers are better, which is
talk about your weird flexes, by the way.
That one is a weird flex, especially when you don't include Milroe's rushing numbers. But whatever, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that this freshman class. We've talked a lot on Locked On Auburn about how this freshman class, they seem to hate losing more than some of these guys that have been here for a while, which is exactly what you need to kind of turn this culture around, is going out there and publicly saying some of this stuff. I don't know if that's the best move, but I don't mind it, because if you lose, you're going to get, you're going to get crap from Bama fans anyway. So why not do it? Because if he's right, all these quotes are going to be printed on t-shirts, and Auburn fans are going to be wearing them to Iron Bowls for the next 5 years. So I like it. I have no issue with the smack talk, but I definitely see the argument against it.
I think part of it may be a little bit generational. I think you and this class are in the generation of, hey, just talk your talk. And really there are very little repercussions. That's why I think it is low-key brilliant, because like you said, there's not much risk. I mean, there's some Alabama fans who have told me I'm wrong in our comments on Locked On Bama, but I said, look, if he's wrong, if Alabama wins a game, if they win it by blowout or win by 1, I think for a day or two, people will go, well, take that, DeMarcus Riddick. But I think after the next week or so, it's going to be sort of gone, because Alabama's going to be like, how can we get in the playoffs? I think they'll quit worrying about that. But I'm not a huge fan of smack talk ever. I mean, pre-game, in the game, I understand that's the way it's going to be. Pre-game, I'm not a huge fan, but I'm a lot older than most everybody listening to this. So it's a generational thing. I mean,
you are like super old. We were talking about this earlier this week, actually.
I am. I'm 52 years old, and I look every bit of it.
How about that? I think you look great.
Thank you.
I think you look great. So then Milroe was asked about the DeMarcus Riddick comments, and he says, yeah, I don't know who that is, which either says like you're just totally not plugged in at all, or like you're not watching tape at all. Like you don't know who the guy who's going to be spying you is. Like, are you not watching tape yet? Or he's lying. So I thought that was a weird response from an upperclassman.
My bet is it was his own version of trash talk. I mean, my bet is he does know who he is.
I think he was trying to do the Aaron Rodgers thing.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of, that is a way to insult somebody, to be like, hey, I don't even know who you are. And I think he might not know him by name. Frankly, he may know him as number 16, I think Riddick is, right? Mm-hmm. He might know him as just number 16. I don't know. Because Riddick is a good player. I think he's a really good player. Sure. And surely he will be out there a lot. I saw Malachi Moore, basically he wasn't even trash talk. He's like, yeah, I think Ryan Williams is really good. And because I think that was, by the way, say what you want to about Riddick, and you may love all this. And number one, I hate to break it to anybody, I'll be shocked. I would love to see Milroe and Riddick foot race, because I do feel like Milroe would win that. He's one of the fastest players in Alabama.
Milroe's really fast, and Riddick has a few pounds on him. Not that Riddick's not athletic and fast for his position, but it's like Milroe is just it's kind of a different category. Honestly.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. I don't think there's any shame. I mean, I don't think there's any shame in Riddick or anybody. I know, again, some people love it. It would, I guess, in a perfect world, it would be better if he was like, yeah, Ryan Williams is a good player and I respect him. But that's just not going to happen.
And he did say that first, and that got cut out, where he talked about how he's electric and dynamic and an explosive player. But then he's like, he's nobody to me.
Yeah, I know. That's a little bit contradictory, but yeah, okay.
Well, it is through the lens of like, hey, he's a good player, but he also he probably feels like Ryan Williams lied to him, because I think this class thought that Ryan Williams was going to be a part of the class with them. And so, I think
give me a break. I'm sorry. That's a weird flex, because DeMarcus Riddick was committed to Georgia. Did he lie to Georgia? I mean, the Cam Coleman's committed to A&M. Do you lie to A&M? I mean, this whole thing about, well, we feel lied to. All of recruiting is a big lie all the time.
I'll give you that. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. But if I had to guess where Riddick was coming from, I do think, whether it's valid or not, I don't know, but I do think that's where he was coming from. So,
I mean, that's a weird place to come from. I mean, because
is it though? Though? I mean, put yourself in the thought process of an 18-year-old. Like, is it? I mean, I think you're assuming that like they're grown men and they've kind of got everything figured out.
Well,
I don't know if that's really the case.
Again, spare me the 18-year-old stuff too. These are 18-year-olds. By the way, Ryan Williams is only 17. I don't know if you knew that. But
if you didn't, I'm sure they will tell us several times on Saturday.
But they all make a bunch of money now too. So I mean, you want to be treated like an adult. You want to be paid like an adult. You're going to be treated like an adult. I mean, again, I'm not saying these aren't kids, and like it's not like they go from prepubescent to adult. I understand that the mental maturity still got to be there, but at the same time, it's harder to feel sorry for them when they make verbal missteps when they are making a lot more money than you and I combined times 100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I whatever. I don't want to talk about this much more, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. If I had to guess where Riddick was coming from, I think that would be part of it. I also think part of it is when all that recruiting stuff was really going on, like a lot of Bama fans. I mean, his grandmother is very outspoken on social media, and a lot of Bama fans said some really crappy stuff to her. So if I'm him, I hate Alabama too. Like I don't blame him at all for that. So we'll see.
I'm going to say this again. And I'm not doubting. I saw some of those things. Yeah, they're awful. Not why somebody would want to get in a Twitter war with somebody's grandmama. I don't care who she plays for.
Yeah.
But that goes both ways. And if you're going to get on social media and say something,
I'm with you.
You're going to get it back.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. But also, like, I understand why if he doesn't like Alabama, like I get it. I get it.
Fair.
And that's what makes his rivalry so great. So,
why did he say I don't ever lose to rivals when you already lost to Georgia?
Can't defend that one. Can't defend that one at all. What do you think of Cam Coleman's? We're going to go to the crib and take over and have a good time while doing it. I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially what he said. What do you think about that one?
Almost verbatim. I'm like, okay, good luck. I mean, I'm hoping. Here's what scares me about this, right? I'm hoping this team does take that personally. Now, I'm hoping they do. It does motivate them, because last week they were completely unmotivated. And that's what worries me, is that this team isn't going to look at it like a shot across the bow. It worries me to death. And I don't, any other Alabama team, I'd say Cam Coleman's about to get shut down. And but this Alabama team, I don't know. I just don't know. And again, on top of all this, one thing that keeps getting glossed over is Alabama lost Deontay Lawson for the season. And that's one of your defensive leaders. He's a great player, and he's done. And that hurts Alabama a lot. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit over here and be one of those guys like, we're about to shut them down. I don't know that we're going to shut them down. I don't know that at all.
Yeah, let's jump into our picks and predictions in just a second, right here on the special crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Bama. Today's show brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. You can fuel your fandom over at 5 Hour Energy. Luke, can you imagine not swigging a 5 Hour Energy before a late kick? Can you imagine that?
No, I love those things.
Yeah, they're the best. They're the best. Yeah, they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. It's the energy shot made just for super fans like all of you watching. And it's for fans who are first in the parking lot and the last to leave. They see you. So 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy shot is here to help you fuel throughout the season. It's all available at 5hourenergy.com. And of course, it's shipped nationwide. Final few moments on this week's crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Bama. Luke, I feel crazy picking Auburn in this game, but I'm going to. I'm picking Auburn to win on Saturday. Is it straight vibes? Is it the Boog? I don't know. But to me, like, I think Auburn wins a close game and Bryant-Denny.
I can buy it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong. I don't have any idea what Alabama team shows up. Now, we are prisoners of the moment here. Auburn just won this electric, incredible game. And frankly, again, to be fair, and not trying to pick a scab here, but it's the first time Auburn's won a big game in quite some time.
Yeah, and since 2021, that game against Ole Miss.
Yeah. And it was an electric atmosphere, and everybody is in their feelings, and Auburn basketball is kicking butt, and all that stuff's going on, and it feels like everything's coming up orange and blue right now. So I get it. I get the positivity. Recruiting is going well, all those things. For Alabama, we are prisoners of the moment in the sense that we just watched us lay the worst egg we've laid since 06-ish, maybe even before that. I mean,
sure.
And it was just god awful, and it just feels like, wow, we don't even know what to think about this team anymore. Mm-hmm. And the guy, Jalen Milroe, who I'm a big fan of, I've always been a big fan of, but I even said on Twitter against Oklahoma, I was like, it may be good to sit him because we need a spark. We need something, and it wasn't happening. So I get why I have all this uncertainty, not necessarily negativity. I have a lot of uncertainty. I feel like Alabama's the better team. I feel like in Tuscaloosa, Alabama certainly got an advantage, but I'm very curious how that advantage is going to look and what the fan vibe is going to be and what the mood's going to be. So
what do you think of all of the Alabama fans posted on socials and message boards? And I mean, you even kind of had a playful tweet earlier in the week about it of like, oh, let's just boycott the Iron Bowl, which obviously they're not taking seriously, but just the fact that it's like, that's a joke that several Alabama fans are making. I mean, that kind of like shows where the fan base is, or are they just still upset from Saturday, and then by the time this Saturday rolls around, they'll be fine.
That's the way it is. And look, all the fan bases have done that. There's nothing I enjoy more than perusing an Auburn message board after an Auburn loss. And everybody was fire Peyton Thorne, fire Hugh Freeze. We knew what we were getting when we got him. And after Saturday, it is all loves and kisses and hugs and toilet paper. So yeah, that's just the way fandom is. I try not to take those people seriously. And again, it's really hard to take many people on Twitter seriously, period, including you and me.
Yeah, Twitter is not real life, for sure.
No, it's not.
For sure. Solid reminder there. To me, if I'm Auburn, I have a really similar game plan offensively to what I did to Texas A&M last week. Jarquez Hunter had 28 carries. These are a little inflated because of the 4 overtimes, but he ended the game with 28 carries and 4 receptions. So 32 touches for Jarquez Hunter. I don't know if you can get to 30, but Luke, if it's a close game and you're doing everything you can to kind of control the game, I'm trying to get to as close as 30 touches for Jarquez Hunter as I can.
I would. I mean, Alabama couldn't stop the run this last weekend. You know, Jimmy and I were laughing. Like, he was like, the defensive backs look pretty good. I was like, how do we know? They didn't have to throw a ball longer than 10 yards.
It was like 12 passes. They threw like 12 times or something.
And all of them were slants. I mean, it wasn't like they threw any deep balls. I mean, we just didn't have to deal with anything like that. So, I again, it's all part of that uncertainty for me. And part of me is scared to death in the sense that, you know, maybe this is Jimmy and I have both agreed, by the way. Jimmy Stein, my co-host on Locked On Bama. The dynasty is over. Now, there are some people who say it isn't.
Wow.
It is. It's over, and that's okay because we've had other dynasties, and hopefully we can get another one back. But this one is over, and so it's.
What was the moment where it ended? Do you think?
Did
it end with Saban, or did it end this past weekend when y'all lost to Oklahoma?
I feel like it truly, the nail in the coffin was this past weekend. So maybe that's my upside is maybe it's like, okay, new season starts now, new dynasty starts now. Maybe we can treat it like that. I don't know. But, again, there are going to be Alabama fans that probably give me heck saying I'm being too negative and too uncertain and too whatever.
I mean, I think you're being a little negative. I mean, if that's how you feel, it's how you feel. But I do think, like, this is an above average football team. Like, y'all have 3 losses going into the final week of the season. I know expectations and all that are fine. Like,
the schedule's ridiculous.
It's a tough schedule for sure.
Now I am being more negative. When it comes to Auburn, it's harder and harder for me to look at it objectively because I did grow up so close to Auburn because most of my friends are Auburn fans because I have to deal with Auburn people all the time. It's the game means more to me than it means to some other folks. I mean, other people do think Tennessee is the biggest rival. I don't. I never will.
Yeah.
I think it's Auburn. I don't care if Auburn's 0-11 coming into the game. I will always believe that. So, and in a way that is respectful, but so it's hard for me because there have been times I was in Auburn in 97 when Ed Sissom fumbled. When all we had to do was just give it to a guy who's probably going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame. That's all we had to do.
Right.
And we couldn't do it. So I've been there for some bad moments, and Auburn always gives me a lot of anxiety. I got to take extra medication during the Auburn week.
Who's your pick? Are you picking Bama or Auburn?
All right. I almost feel like I can't even pick it because I'm going to jinx it either way, but I will pick Bama in the closest of close games.
I'm thinking like 27-24.
Yeah, I feel something like that because and I'll be honest with you, my pick is Homer based. I have no problem saying that.
That's fine.
That's fine. I'm very, very concerned. It's not going to shock me if Auburn wins this. 2 weeks ago, I'd been like, we're going to wax those dudes.
I'm there with you. With you. Now all of a sudden it just looks different. It feels different.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Iron Bowl?
Oh gosh. I'll tell you what, I do. I have a quick story for you. The 55-44 one is up there, and I'll tell you why. Because I had the luxury of sitting in a skybox in Tuscaloosa for that one. There was an Auburn fan with her husband in there, and she came with an Alabama couple. And while Auburn was kicking our tail for a little bit, if you remember, she looked over at the Alabama friend that she was with and said, "Now listen, no matter what happens, it's just a game, and we're all going to have fun afterwards, no matter what happens." Well, Alabama comes back and wins 55-44. Derrick Henry goes long touchdown towards the end. Soon as Derrick Henry broke around the end, she and her husband stormed out, and I hadn't seen them since.
That's
so that memory always makes me feel like that's a chef's kiss right there.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. If you can't take it afterwards, don't talk smack for sure.
But I'll say this: the other one that really stands out to me, and again, I hate for it to be this one because I hate for Brian Harsin to be involved. Look, I don't like Brian Harsin any more than y'all do, by the way. Okay.
The potato famine reached all across the state for sure.
I appreciate his pettiness on Twitter, and it is straight petty. I mean, just wow. But for a man who made $15 million to go away, but that 2021 Iron Bowl, Bryce Young, who is one of my favorite players of all time, to bring that team back with. He was missing his top two receivers. Well, no, missing his top receiver was bananas. So I had a blast.
That was a wild game. That was a wild game for sure.
What's yours?
2013.
You got to throw that one out a little bit.
Yeah, second row in the student section. I mean, I'll remember that for the rest of my life. Then probably 2019 with the two pick sixes and the doink. Yeah, the doink off of the field goal. So yeah, those two. And that was like an emotional time too, because like that was the first Iron Bowl like after Rod Bramlett passed away too. So like they did some cool stuff with that. So I think the Auburn community needed that one big time. So if you're not letting me say 2013, I'll say 2019. So
I think 2013 is kind of cheating, and I think if I were to say last year, it's sort of like that's also recency bias because Alabama.
You could say last year as a Bama fan. I totally get it. I totally get that one.
The fourth and 30, the play of 4th and 31 is pretty awesome. Just like the 2nd and 26 is awesome for that national championship game, but that first half of that game stunk.
Yeah, no, I get it. For all the Auburn folks watching, how can they check out Locked On Bama?
Anywhere you find Locked On Auburn, you can find Locked On Bama on YouTube and Apple and everywhere else. So we'd love to have you come and hate watch.
Yep. Search Locked On Auburn or Locked On Bama on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. For Luke Robinson of Locked On Bama, I'm Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn. This has been the crossover of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Bama, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.